A neglected ship cast aside by all. A human mechanic turns it into the galaxy's deadliest war machine. Rusted scrap stations floated like driftwood, and long-abandoned satellites hummed faintly with the energy left behind. Here, no one came to check or care, and among the forgotten wrecks sat a ship, old and battered, half sunk in orbit around a dead rock. It was a ship the galaxy had cast aside. Its AI was outdated, its hull scratched by decades of neglect, and its systems were inefficient compared to the sleek, perfectly tuned vessels now celebrated in galactic fleets. Everyone who had known of it had written it off. Everyone except Kira Jensen. Kira was human, and humans had a habit of noticing what others ignored. She stepped off her small shuttle and floated toward the ship in a maintenance pod. Her hair was tied back, streaked with grease and dust, and her jumpsuit smelled faintly of ozone and engine oil. She had been a soldier once, but she had always preferred machines to orders. Machines did what you told them, or what you could convince them to do, but humans, Kira thought, could always find a way. The ship's hull groaned as if sighing under the weight of its years. Kira smiled. "You've got potential," she said aloud, even though no one was there to hear her. Maybe the ship could hear. She liked to believe that machines could. Her first steps inside were careful. Most humans would have been intimidated by the dust, the dark corridors, the smell of burnt circuitry and mold. But Kira was not most humans. She ran her hands along the metal walls, feeling the vibrations, listening to the hum of long-dormant engines. There was life here. Faint, stubborn, and waiting for someone who cared enough to bring it back. The control room was a chaos of blinking lights, wires hanging loose, and monitors cracked from age. The AI core was silent, its circuits corroded. Most engineers would have seen it as useless beyond saving, but Kira saw opportunity. She knelt before it, squinting at the panels. "This isn't broken," she muttered. "It's waiting to be taught something new." Kira spent hours just walking the ship, checking systems, noting weak points, and imagining how she could make it better. Its engines were ancient, inefficient, but they had endurance. Its shields were weak, but they could be amplified with the right modifications. Its hull had dents and scratches, but they told stories of durability. And its design, awkward to others, was versatile, like a human hand compared to the rigid claw of a robot. By the time she stepped out of the ship to eat a ration bar, the nearby stars were pale and distant. She didn't care. Her mind was already working, spinning through ideas and possibilities. She sketched on a datapad, drawing new engine schematics, shield layouts, and sensor arrays. Each design was based on what humans could do that machines could not. Adapt, improvise, combine old parts in new ways, predict unexpected problems. It was when she returned to the ship for the night that she noticed it. A soft pulse from deep within the hull, something almost like a heartbeat. She froze. "Hello," she whispered, half laughing. "You've got something hiding in there." The pulse faded, subtle enough to be mistaken for a system glitch. But Kira knew the difference. Machines that were truly alive, or at least aware in some way, behaved differently from dead code. They waited. They responded. And Kira had a way of talking to them. Over the next few days, she worked tirelessly. She scavenged parts from the surrounding derelicts, repurposing engines, sensors, and even decorative panels. Humans had a knack for seeing usefulness where others saw trash, and Kira was no exception. She installed new conduits, rerouted energy flows, and carefully cleaned the core. Slowly, the AI flickered to life, weakly at first, then stronger, responding in ways the original designers never imagined. It was still slow and unpolished, but it had curiosity. It asked questions in its mechanical voice, simple and awkward, but questions nonetheless. "Where am I?" it asked one evening. "You're in safe hands," Kira said, tightening a loose wire. "You've been forgotten, but not anymore." As the AI learned, so did Kira. She discovered quirks in the ship's systems that no protocol could predict. The engines could overdrive if guided carefully. Shields could regenerate using leftover energy from other systems. Sensors could detect faint gravitational disturbances, not just nearby ships. Every flaw became a chance to innovate, and every risk became a step closer to something extraordinary. But not everyone was blind. A passing freighter noticed the ship drifting in the derelict sector. The crew laughed when they saw Kira inside, a lone human among a heap of rust. "That ship's junk," one said. "Nothing alive in there but your imagination." Kira only smiled. Humans were underestimated, always underestimated. That was their edge. One night, while testing a newly rigged energy relay, she noticed a change in the pulse from the ship's core. It was stronger now, almost like a heartbeat that matched hers. She paused, hand on the console. "You like this, don't you?" she said softly. The ship hummed in response, almost like a purr. It was exhilarating. Kira felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. She realized that this wasn't just about fixing a ship. It was about creating something no one else could imagine, something the galaxy had forgotten but humans could revive. Over the next week, Kira worked without rest. She installed makeshift propulsion boosters, tested shield harmonics, and even experimented with stealth modifications. The ship began to respond, almost like it was learning from her. She named it the Phoenix, a ship cast aside, now rising from the ashes under human hands. When she finally paused to look out at the dark expanse, she felt a strange sense of pride. The Phoenix was not perfect. It still bore scars, dents, and outdated circuitry, but it had potential, and potential in Kira's mind was everything. A faint warning blinked on the sensor panel. Kira frowned. It was an unfamiliar signal, a ripple in spacetime that only her modified instruments could detect. She leaned closer, heart pounding. Something or someone was approaching. Not at warp, not with typical engines, but moving stealthily, cautiously, and with intent. Kira smiled. Finally, someone might see what she had built. Not just a human mechanic, not just a ship, but something the galaxy had never considered possible. The stars around the derelict sector seemed to shimmer, almost in anticipation. The forgotten ship, the neglected vessel, was no longer invisible, and neither was the human who refused to believe in limits. Kira took a deep breath, hands on the controls. The Phoenix stirred beneath her touch, ready for whatever came next. And for the first time in years, Kira felt the thrill of being underestimated, and of being unstoppable. The derelict sector was quiet again, but the Phoenix no longer felt like a forgotten ghost. Its systems hummed with energy, and its new modifications were coming online one by one. Kira Jensen moved through the corridors with purpose, tools in hand, checking panels and adjusting circuits. Every wire she touched, every bolt she tightened, brought the ship closer to something extraordinary. Kira had worked in ships before, fixing engines and patching hulls, but this was different. This ship wasn't just broken, it was alive in a way. The AI responded to her changes, learning, adapting, sometimes even suggesting minor adjustments she hadn't considered. It was slow and awkward, but it was learning, and that excited her more than any reward or praise ever could. "Okay," she said aloud, pacing the control room. "Let's see what you can really do." The first test was simple: propulsion. Kira had rigged a set of auxiliary boosters using old power cells scavenged from nearby wrecks. Normally, these boosters would have been useless, mismatched, dangerous. But humans could see patterns where machines could not. She guided energy flows carefully, calibrating the boosters to work in harmony with the old engines. The result was immediate. The ship shuddered at first, then surged forward like a living thing stretching its limbs. Kira laughed, gripping the console. "I knew it. You just needed a little human touch." The next days were a blur of experiments. Shields were reinforced with overlapping energy layers, rerouted in a pattern the original engineers would never have imagined. Sensors were modified to detect gravitational disturbances, asteroid movement, and even faint traces of life forms in nearby star systems. Every time she completed a modification, she ran a test, watching as the Phoenix responded with quiet, eager compliance. It wasn't just machines she was outsmarting, it was expectations. The galaxy thought this ship was junk. The AI fleet managers thought humans were inefficient. But here in the derelict sector, Kira was rewriting both assumptions with each bolt she tightened. One evening, as she floated above the engineering bay checking the new shield conduits, she noticed a flicker on the external cameras. Something moved on the edge of the sector. Not a ship like the sleek freighters or patrol drones she had seen before, but a shadowy vessel, small, silent, cautious. Kira frowned. "Hello," she said softly, pressing a button to activate the ship's external scanners. The readings were minimal. Whoever or whatever it was, they were hiding. Curiosity burned brighter than caution. Humans had a way of noticing details others ignored, and Kira was no exception. She adjusted the sensors to detect subtle energy fluctuations and waited. Slowly, the readings sharpened. The approaching vessel was real, powered by something unfamiliar, moving with intent. Kira's mind raced. The Phoenix was fast and adaptive, but this was the first time she had detected another ship that might challenge her. Not with weapons, she had purposefully avoided lethal systems, but with speed, sensors, and strategy. "All right, let's see what you've got," she whispered to the ship. The vessel drew closer, moving cautiously, scanning for life or activity. Kira activated the Phoenix's new stealth array, a combination of old panels, new energy fields, and clever angles. The ship shimmered, blending into the starlight. She held her breath. For a moment, the other vessel passed through without noticing her. Then sensors detected a scan probe bouncing off a distant asteroid. The probe paused. Kira grinned. She had predicted it. Using a feedback loop she had improvised, she redirected the probe's signals into empty space. The other ship didn't realize it had been fooled. Humans were unpredictable. Machines were precise. That difference had just saved her from discovery. Over the next few days, the unknown vessel lingered at the edge of the sector. Kira observed it without revealing herself. The AI noted patterns, tracking the ship's behavior, and began to adjust its predictions. Kira smiled. She had taught it how to learn, how to improvise, but it was still her human intuition guiding the actions. Meanwhile, she continued improving the ship. She reinforced the hull with layered alloys scavenged from old freighters. She rerouted auxiliary power to improve maneuverability, giving the ship a flexibility no standard design could match. Even the cockpit controls were redesigned to respond faster to human inputs, giving her precise control in situations where AI pilots would overcomplicate or delay decisions. The transformation wasn't perfect. Sometimes systems misfired. Sometimes the AI asked questions that revealed gaps in understanding, but Kira was patient. That was the human advantage: persistence, adaptability, a willingness to try again when the odds seemed impossible. One morning, while running a sensor calibration, Kira received a communication burst from the unknown vessel. It was encrypted, but she intercepted fragments of a message. "Human, vessel, anomaly." Her smile widened. The galaxy was noticing. The humans were underestimated, and yet here she was, a single mechanic with a ship that had once been forgotten. She spent the next hours preparing a demonstration. Nothing dangerous, just a controlled test of agility and strategy. She used abandoned asteroids as obstacles, guiding the Phoenix through impossible maneuvers. She activated the energy feedback loops to dodge sensor scans, and the ship responded perfectly. It moved with grace and speed that no other derelict vessel should have been capable of. The unknown ship, watching from afar, must have been confused. Perhaps it had been expecting a slow, obsolete human ship. Perhaps it had not accounted for creativity. Kira felt a thrill of pride. The Phoenix wasn't just a ship. It was a statement, a proof of concept. Humans were clever. Humans could improvise. Humans could turn a forgotten piece of scrap into a vessel the galaxy would have to respect. As night fell in the derelict sector, Kira ran one last test. She engaged a stealth maneuver combined with a sudden burst of speed, passing near the unknown vessel undetected. Sensors showed it had paused, scanning for something it couldn't detect. Humans, Kira muttered with a grin. They'll never see it coming. The ship pulsed softly in response, as if agreeing. Kira felt a bond forming with the Phoenix, stronger than ever. It wasn't just metal and circuits anymore. It was alive in its own way and it trusted her. But she also knew the galaxy wouldn't ignore them forever. Something or someone was watching. Someone curious, cautious, and possibly dangerous. The knowledge sent a shiver down her spine, not from fear but from excitement. Challenges meant opportunity, and humans thrived on challenges. The next few weeks were a blur of modifications and tests. Kira improved the propulsion system, integrated adaptive shields that could reroute energy almost instantly, and enhanced the AI's decision-making, still under her guidance. Every night she recorded observations, learning from the ship as much as it learned from her. She named new systems after human qualities: ingenuity drive, persistence shield, curiosity sensors. Each name reminded her that humans had qualities no AI could replicate perfectly. Intuition, creativity, adaptation. One evening, as she floated above the control room, she noticed a tiny energy pulse deep in the ship's core. The AI had been evolving slowly, subtly, but now it had developed a new function, a way of predicting nearby movements before sensors even picked them up. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Kira recognized the significance immediately. "This is amazing," she whispered. "You're learning faster than I imagined." For the first time, the AI responded in a tone that sounded almost like pride. "Yes, because you teach differently," it said. Kira laughed, a sound of pure joy. Teaching machines was one thing. Teaching machines to adapt beyond their original programming was another. And humans could do that. Humans could always surprise. The unknown vessel returned several times, scanning the sector, observing from a distance. But each time, Kira and the Phoenix stayed hidden, testing new maneuvers, refining systems, and building confidence. With every success, Kira knew she was proving something larger than herself. Humans could take what others discarded, neglected, or underestimated and transform it into something extraordinary, and the galaxy would soon learn that lesson. By the end of Part II, the ship was no longer just a forgotten relic. It was agile, adaptive, and clever. And its human pilot had begun to understand the true potential of both the vessel and herself. In the derelict sector, among the rusted remnants of ships long forgotten, Kira Jensen smiled at the stars. She knew the galaxy would not ignore them forever. But when they came, they would meet something unexpected, unstoppable, and unmistakably human. The derelict sector had become the Phoenix's home, but Kira Jensen knew it could not stay hidden forever. The ship was fast, adaptive, and clever, but the galaxy was vast, and there were always watchers. She had detected the unknown vessel several times, always observing from a distance, cautious and curious. And she knew that eventually someone or some fleet would try to challenge her. Humans thrived on challenges. That was the difference. Others relied on routine, protocol, or brute force. Humans improvised, adapted, and outsmarted, and Kira intended to prove it. She began preparations. Not for combat. She had intentionally avoided installing lethal weapons, but for strategy, observation, and control. She modified the Phoenix's sensors to detect signals at impossible ranges. She improved the engines to allow rapid maneuvers, sudden directional changes, and silent approaches. She programmed the AI to simulate potential fleet movements, analyzing patterns that even experienced captains might miss. "Humans think differently," she told the ship one evening, adjusting the feedback on the adaptive shields. "We don't follow rules blindly. We notice what others ignore." The AI hummed, its soft pulse almost like agreement. Weeks later, Kira finally had the chance to test her systems. A small coalition fleet had entered the sector, scanning for anomalies. The fleet's captain, a tall, rigid alien named Talrek, dismissed the reports of a lone human ship as rumor. "A human," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "They are not capable of significant innovation. Let them rot in the derelict sector." They were wrong. Kira observed from her hidden position near a field of asteroids. The fleet moved confidently, scanning methodically. Drones flew ahead to map the sector. Kira guided the Phoenix through a series of tight maneuvers, weaving among asteroids, slipping past detection grids, and activating the stealth array at just the right moment. The fleet's sensors picked up nothing. She chuckled. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their patience, observation, and adaptability were unmatched. The first interaction was subtle. Kira activated a low-frequency signal that created a false reading, a massive energy spike in a nearby asteroid belt. The fleet rushed to investigate, leaving the path to the Phoenix completely unguarded. She watched as Talrek's drone scanned the phantom signal, confused by patterns that made no logical sense. "They're chasing ghosts," Kira whispered, "and humans are already one step ahead." Over the next few days, she tested her systems further. The fleet began noticing anomalies, drones moving erratically, signals that appeared and vanished, energy readings that made no sense. Each time, Kira carefully adjusted her maneuvers to stay hidden, studying the reactions of the fleet. It was not just about hiding. She wanted to demonstrate strategy. Humans could solve problems without violence. Humans could control situations with intellect and innovation. Every move she made was designed to teach the fleet a lesson without a single shot fired. The AI began suggesting new tactics. If fleet scans increase by 20%, adjust trajectory to avoid detection, it said one evening. Kira grinned. The AI was learning strategy, but still under her guidance. Humans could teach machines to think, but humans themselves would always hold the creative edge. Then came the real test. Talrek's fleet decided to send a scouting ship closer, confident they could capture the human or prove it was insignificant. Kira prepared the Phoenix for observation. She activated the maneuvering boosters, set the stealth systems to maximum efficiency, and waited. The scouting ship moved cautiously, its sensors sweeping the asteroid field. Kira calculated the ship's trajectory, predicting its every move. With a sudden flick of the controls, she altered the Phoenix's position, reflecting light in a way that made it appear behind the scout rather than in front. The scout was confused. Its sensors showed a human ship where none existed. It turned, attempting to locate the anomaly, and Kira subtly guided the readings to make the ship chase empty space. She watched the scout spin in circles for hours, unable to locate her. And all the while, she remained calm, precise, and confident. Humans were underestimated, but now they were in control. "Observation is enough," she said, floating in the cockpit. "They think they are hunting, but really we are teaching." By the next day, Talrek's fleet had adjusted. They deployed larger scanners, more drones, even attempted predictive algorithms. But every move they made was anticipated. Kira had noticed the patterns, subtle routines they could not hide, and used them to remain one step ahead. The fleet began murmuring among themselves. "The human is smarter than expected," one officer admitted. "This is unusual. No AI could predict this." Kira smiled. Humans could improvise where AI could only calculate. Humans could bend situations without breaking rules. Humans could turn a derelict ship into a master of strategy. And it was working. Over the following week, Kira escalated the lessons. She created simulated traps with energy fields and decoy signals, forcing drones and scouting vessels to retreat or get misdirected. The fleet grew frustrated, their movements less confident, more cautious. Talrek himself frowned as he realized that the human was not just surviving, it was controlling the battlefield without firing a single weapon. Kira knew that humans were stronger when underestimated. The galaxy assumed humans were simple, predictable, and weak. She had already proven that assumption wrong. Now, she was proving that intelligence and ingenuity were more powerful than firepower. One night, as she monitored the fleet, she noticed a subtle change in the unknown vessel that had been watching her for weeks. It approached closer this time, sending signals directly toward the Phoenix. Kira decoded part of the message: human, adaptive, impossible. She laughed softly. "Yes," she said to the ship, "we are impossible, and you are about to see what humans can really do." Kira spent the next days planning her most complex maneuver yet. She would show the fleet, and the unknown observers, how humans could dominate situations without violence. She mapped the fleet's movements, predicted their scans, and used the asteroid fields and energy anomalies as a natural camouflage. The demonstration began at dawn. Kira guided the Phoenix through a series of breathtaking maneuvers. She approached the fleet from multiple angles, appearing and disappearing at will, creating the illusion of dozens of ships instead of one. Every movement was calculated to test the fleet's intelligence and patience, to show that humans could control situations with subtlety rather than aggression. The AI assisted, suggesting minor adjustments, but every creative twist came from Kira herself. She laughed as the fleet scrambled to follow illusions, chasing phantoms while the Phoenix moved freely in the gaps they left. Finally, Kira activated the final maneuver. Using a combination of the adaptive shields and engine bursts, she created a series of reflected energy pulses, forming a dazzling light display across the asteroid field. To the fleet, it appeared as if the Phoenix had multiplied into dozens of vessels, surrounding them, controlling space itself. Talrek stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered. "It cannot be a human ship. There is no way," and that was the point. There was no way, except that humans had made it possible. The demonstration ended without a single shot fired, without harm to a single drone or scout. The fleet retreated, wary and respectful, and Talrek finally understood. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and impossible to defeat with conventional strategies. Kira floated in the cockpit, exhausted but exhilarated. She had proven something bigger than herself. She had proven that humans were a force to be reckoned with, not because of weapons or brute strength, but because of ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. And as the unknown vessel watched from the shadows, Kira knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was starting to notice humans, and they would never look at them the same way again. "The galaxy underestimates humans," she whispered to the Phoenix. "They always do, but that's our advantage." The ship hummed in agreement. Together, human and machine, they were ready for whatever came next. And somewhere, deep in the cosmos, others began to take note. The age of human ingenuity had quietly begun. The galaxy had begun to notice humans. Not as soldiers, not as diplomats, not as cogs in AI-driven fleets, but as something else entirely: unpredictable, clever, unstoppable when underestimated. And in the derelict sector, among rusted stations and forgotten satellites, Kira Jensen and the Phoenix were ready to show exactly why. Kira floated in the cockpit, eyes on the scanners. The unknown vessel that had been observing her for weeks hovered at the edge of the sector, cautious but clearly curious. The coalition fleet, once dismissive, now lingered nearby, scanning and debating, unsure of what to do next. Kira smiled. They had all learned something about humans, but it was time for the next lesson. She activated the Phoenix's sensors and engines simultaneously. Every system hummed in perfect coordination. She had spent months perfecting the ship's speed, stealth, shields, and intelligence. Every flaw she had once patched had become a strength. Every modification she had improvised had become part of a greater plan. And now, the galaxy was about to see it in action. "Ready?" she whispered to the ship. The Phoenix responded with a pulse through the hull, soft and confident like a heartbeat. She grinned. Let us show them what humans can do. Her plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. The Coalition fleet had weapons, numbers, and AI-assisted strategy. She had creativity, intuition, and unpredictability. Kira would demonstrate that humans could control the battlefield, not with firepower, but with superior thinking, improvisation, and precision. The demonstration began at first light. Using the asteroid belt as cover, she guided the Phoenix to approach the fleet from unexpected angles. She activated decoy energy signals, creating the illusion of multiple ships appearing at once. The Coalition fleet scrambled to respond, moving drones and scanning systems to locate the threats that didn't exist. Kira's fingers danced over the controls. "They think they see us," she said softly. "But really, we're controlling every move they make." The unknown observer drew closer, trying to track her movements. But every time it adjusted its course, Kira had anticipated it, using the ship's stealth and agility to stay one step ahead. Energy pulses reflected in the asteroid field, creating false readings that made it appear as though the fleet was surrounded. Talrek, the Coalition captain, watched in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered. "A single human ship controlling the entire battlefield." It was impossible, except for humans. Kira moved the ship through a series of tight maneuvers, passing between asteroids, flipping the ship's orientation in ways no AI would attempt, and manipulating energy reflections to create the illusion of dozens of vessels. The Coalition fleet reacted predictably, moving to block imaginary threats, leaving themselves vulnerable to the illusions she created. Every decision Kira made highlighted the human advantage, adaptability. While AI could predict patterns, humans could see beyond them. While machines calculated probabilities, humans could improvise solutions no one else could imagine. The Phoenix responded perfectly to every input, guided by both Kira's intuition and the lessons she had taught it over months of patient work. Hours passed and the Coalition fleet's frustration grew. Drones collided with asteroid fragments. Scanners pinged false readings. Ships repositioned repeatedly, unable to track the elusive human vessel. Talrek's face was pale. "They are everywhere and nowhere," he admitted. "How is this possible?" Kira leaned back in the cockpit, a satisfied smile on her face. Humans didn't need overwhelming force to win. Humans didn't need destruction to dominate. Humans needed creativity, patience, and adaptability. She had proved it, but she was not done. The unknown observer finally entered the fray more directly, sending a probe that scanned the sector at full power. Kira anticipated it. She guided the probe into an energy loop she had prepared weeks earlier, one that reflected its signals back to its origin, creating a perfect echo. The probe detected itself and misread the signals, confusing its operator completely. "Humans don't just react," she said aloud. "We predict, we adapt, we innovate." The observer's ship pulled back, retreating slightly. It had recognized the human ship's capabilities and understood in some form that it was not just clever, it was extraordinary. Kira turned her attention to the Coalition fleet. She projected a holographic map of the sector, overlaying her ship's movements with the fleet's reactions. Every maneuver she had made had been deliberate, each one demonstrating the superiority of strategy over brute force. She wanted the Coalition to see clearly. Humans were not to be underestimated. Talrek studied the map with his officers. "We misjudged them," he admitted finally. "Humans are remarkable, unpredictable, dangerous, but not in the way we thought." "Exactly," Kira whispered to the Phoenix. "We are dangerous because we think differently, because we see possibilities no one else sees." The demonstration ended without a single shot fired, without harm to a single ship. The coalition retreated, cautious now, but with a new respect. Talrek himself had to admit that humans had a gift no AI or fleet could replicate: creativity combined with intuition. The unknown observer sent a final transmission, brief and unencrypted. Human, capable, respected. Kira laughed softly. "Yes," she said, looking out at the stars. "Respect is earned, and humans, we earn it in ways no one expects." In the following days, word of the human ship spread across nearby systems. Rumors circulated of a single vessel that could outmaneuver fleets, manipulate sensors, and control engagements without using weapons. Everyone whispered about the human who had taken a forgotten ship and made it extraordinary. Kira didn't care about fame. She cared about proving something larger: that humans were not weak, not predictable, not to be underestimated. That humans could take what others discarded, what others ignored, and transform it into power. Not power measured in firepower, but in intelligence, adaptability, and ingenuity. She spent her days improving the Phoenix even further, preparing it for the challenges that were certain to come. She upgraded engines, optimized sensors, and refined the AI's predictive algorithms. Every improvement made the ship faster, smarter, more flexible. But the heart of it remained human: Kira's intuition guiding every move, every decision, every strategy. One night, as she floated in the cockpit, she looked at the stars and realized how far she had come. A ship forgotten, abandoned, and dismissed by the galaxy had become a symbol of human potential. She had taken something neglected and turned it into the deadliest, most clever war machine, without firing a single weapon. And the galaxy had learned a lesson. The coalition fleet sent emissaries to meet her, not with weapons but with curiosity and respect. Talrek himself came, extending a hand, not in battle but in acknowledgement. "You have shown us something extraordinary," he said. "Humans are a force we cannot ignore." Kira smiled. "We've always been extraordinary," she said. "You just didn't notice." The Phoenix pulsed beneath her, almost as if it were smiling too. It had been a partner in the journey, learning, adapting, and growing alongside its human pilot. Together, they had proven that ingenuity, creativity, and courage were far stronger than metal, numbers, or brute force. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Kira knew this was only the beginning. Humans would continue to rise, not through weapons or domination, but through the qualities that made them unique: unpredictability, perseverance, and the courage to see possibilities where others saw none. In the derelict sector, a forgotten ship now commanded respect across the galaxy, and its pilot, human, clever, relentless, had shown the universe the true edge of humanity. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. Kira floated in the cockpit, watching distant stars. "We're just getting started," she said softly, and the Phoenix pulsed in agreement, ready for the adventures ahead.